Assalamu alaikum, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you in this session of Ask Dr. Saleem. How does the concept of imamate refute against the finality of prophethood?
Because it refutes the finality of the prophethood, because this concept actually gives the imams the final authority in religion, just as this final authority belongs to the prophet himself. So they equate the imams not in stature but as far as their legal authority is concerned. So just as the directive of the prophet would be regarded as something that has to be obeyed at all cost, so similarly the concept that whenever the directive of an imam reaches us, then it cannot be disobeyed. So in other words, the traits which a prophet of God has, or specifically in this case Prophet Muhammad has, is given, at least it is shared by the 11 imams or the 12 imams.
So we have a follow-up, and it asks, what about those who believe in imamate? They still remain in the circle of Islam.
Oh yes, they do remain in the circle of Islam, because you see, this is something which is an interpretive, I would say, category of things. When you interpret certain things, you're not denying a certain thing. All you're doing is you're interpreting it in a different way. So we can differ with people, and they have a different opinion, but this does not take them outside the domain of religion, because that is something which only God can have the prerogative, or His prophets. As far as we are concerned, as long as a person professes faith in God and His prophet, he has to be regarded as a Muslim. And also, if a person regards himself to be a Muslim, we are no one to say that he is not. It could be a different understanding of religion that he or she might have, and we might disagree with that understanding, but this does not make that person go out of the fold of religion.
Does that mean that if when these Qadiani say they are Muslims, we cannot call them non-Muslims?
Yeah, this is a state given a name to them. They have been declared as non-Muslims by the state of Pakistan, by the Parliament of Pakistan, and hence they are declared non-Muslims in the state of Pakistan. It's a legal label that goes along with them. So what I was answering was that this is something which a state does not have the prerogative. It does not have the authority to declare anyone as non-Muslim. And it is something of a wrong precedent that they have set. Only God and His Prophet have the right to declare someone out of the fold of Islam, and that is, of course, something when messengers of God were on the face of this earth, and they were authorized to declare someone beyond the fold of Islam. So once they have passed away, we don't have any means of knowing God's directive in this regard, and we just simply cannot declare anyone as non-Muslim. This is beyond our authority. And the state of Pakistan, when it has declared these personnel as non-Muslim, it has actually exceeded the bounds of its authority.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Dr. Saleem. We have another question that asks, is there any good resource to understand the historical background and context of each verse in the Quran? And could you recommend some reliable books for a deeper and ethical study of the Quran?
So the best way to understand the context of the Quran is the Quran itself. It is in a context. It occurs in a context. A particular directive or a particular verse will occur in the center of a group of verses. It will be a sentence, it will be a construction, it will be a paragraph. So the best way to understand the Quran is from the Quran itself. And so this is something that was vehemently put forward by Ustaz Hamiduddin Farahi, and then of course his student Ustaz Amin as Islahi, and then his student and our teacher Ustaz Javed Ahmed Ghamidi. So as far as Ustaz Hamiduddin Farahi is concerned, he was not able to write a complete commentary of the Quran, but the other two gentlemen that I just mentioned, they have written a tafsir of the Quran, each of them, and it's available online as well. So the best way would be to consult both these commentaries, and wherever there is a difficulty. Otherwise, if you just follow the flow of the Quranic verses, you will find that the Quran itself is the best judge and the best guide to its own coherence.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. They were asking also about how do you know the background for each verse?
You don't, I mean, you see, the historical background is found within the verse. You don't need to go outside the Quran to find out that historical background. Because you see, that verse occurs in a paragraph which is explaining what has led to that particular verse. The background is already found in the text. So you don't need to go out of the Quran to find the background. It is within the text of the Quran that you'll find that background. If you just reflect on it deeply, and if there is any still a question remains, then as I said, these two commentaries of the Quran can be consulted.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question comes from Imran Babar. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. My question is just a follow-up from the previous question regarding Qadianis. You mentioned that we do not have any divine guidance regarding them today. However,
no, what I said was that we don't have a right to declare anyone as non-Muslim. This right is solely it solely rests with God and His messengers. So when messengers of God were on this earth, they declared people as non-Muslims and as disbelievers, and then action was actually taken against them. So in the absence of God and His messengers giving any verdict, this is a right that we don't have. So if we declare someone as non-Muslim, then we are actually doing something which is beyond our authority.
Understood, sir. My question is that at the time of Hazrat Abu Bakr, when Musaylama claimed prophethood, then he took action against him with, in the absence of Prophet Muhammad. So how do we then reconcile this statement with that?
So in the case of Musaylama, he was something who had declared his prophethood in the presence of Prophet's own life, and the action was just deferred. And this would have been the same action that the Prophet would have taken, this is something which Abu Bakr did in his own times, because this was clearly something that belonged to the category of directives that we call as Hiraba or Fasad fil Ard. He had challenged the authority of God and His Prophet on the face of this earth. So on the basis of Hiraba, which is called spreading anarchy in the land, he was actually taken to task.
But can the same principle, I mean, it's not that you don't need a divine guidance for that, somebody is declaring it. We are not judging somebody's intentions. Like Mirza Sahab, he himself declared actually himself as a prophet, and they believe us to be non-believers. Very rightfully actually, that in the presence of a prophet comes, and then if you don't believe in that prophet, then, in their eyes, we are non-Muslims.
Correct. So this is something, yes, you're right, that is what they say. But on that account, they are doing something which is beyond their capacity and beyond their jurisdiction. So if they say the same as what we are saying, that both of us are actually stepping our authority. This is something that they don't have, and this is something that we don't have the authority to say so. So either of us don't have this authority. If both of, people from amongst the Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis, they are doing this, then both of them are basically crossing their limits.
So this is where I get a little confused. I do understand that judging somebody's intentions, yes, we cannot do that because we don't have any divine guidance. But if somebody is self-confessing and claiming to be a prophet, then, to say that this action is against the teaching of Islam, and hence by,
So you see, this is something which they don't say explicitly. If you look at the writings of Mirza Sahab, he does not say this explicitly. It is only later on, in the case of Mirza Bashiruddin, his son, that this belief actually arose. Otherwise, if you look at his writings, you'll find all sorts of things splattered about, not something very precise. You'll find that they are saying the same thing as what our Sufis generally say, that I also receive wahi from God and I also am something that I divinely guided, something which many Sufis say. So basically, it's not that he is saying that this is whatever he is claiming is against the finality of prophethood. He's just, expressing the same. He's expressing the same sentiments and the same ideology as many past Sufis have expressed. Shah Waliullah, for example, and Muhyiddin Ibn al-Arabi, Junaid Baghdadi. So all of these Sufis, they said that as far as prophethood is concerned, it is something about which we can say that only the position of prophethood has been terminated. As far as the traits of prophethood are concerned, which include receiving divine revelation, then that is something that is still going on, and we receive that. So you can see that this is a very debatable thing and not a very explicit thing. And if you look deeper, you'll find that it was basically his son Mirza Bashir who actually elevated him, or he removed the confusion in the statements that could have been found in Mirza Sahib's statements, and he said that, well, he is a prophet of God. And then you can see that the later Ahmadis, they basically corroborated this. But yes, there was one group which are called the Lahoris, and his own disciple Mirza Nuruddin, disciple of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, he parted ways and said that no, he's not a prophet, he's just a reformer. And we find this division amongst the Ahmadis because of this very reason.
Thank
Got
you
it. Thank you
very much, Dr. Saleem. We have another question that asks, since Hadith literature is the historical record of the narratives ascribed to the Prophet or to the companions during the life of the Prophet, there are certain principles which are applied to ascertain the validity and authenticity of these narratives. Whether these principles were also applied while compiling the historical record afterwards, the demise of the Prophet. So this is the first part of their question, if the same principles were applied. And if not, why not apply these principles? And can we apply these principles in the contemporary times to ascertain the authenticity of the hadiths and the events that happened in the history after the martyrdom of Uthman and onwards, the caliphate of Ali and Banu Umayyah?
So we have to understand that we have two different distinct categories of criticism. One can be termed as hadith criticism, and the other is historical criticism. So historical episodes which are not ascribed to the Prophet and they are just happenings, they are dealt with under the label or the rubric of historical criticism, and they are principles of historical criticism that have been enumerated by our authorities. For example, if you look at the Muqaddimah of Ibn Khaldun, so he has given us certain principles on the basis of which historical happenings can be evaluated. And then we have hadith principles which actually refer to the fact that if there is something which is specifically ascribed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then there is a whole category of evaluation that has to be done regarding every narrative which is ascribed to the Prophet, and that has a different protocol. So there's a protocol for hadith evaluation and there's a protocol for history evaluation, and both are very well, I would say, categorized and very well formed, and our scholars are using them, and there is no reason why not to keep on using them. For example, if hadith criticism has been applied by our past scholars and they have come up with certain collections and anthologies of hadith literature, this is something that can still go on, and in fact it is still going on. So even in contemporary times we find scholars who reevaluate what has already been evaluated by, for example, Imam Bukhari or Imam Muslim. Even in contemporary times we have scholars who have debated the authenticity of certain narratives which are found in these collections, and this process should continue because it's a human endeavor, and being a human endeavor, a person can come up with more information or a different angle of evaluation, and he could be correct in his evaluation. So that is a process that should continue, as should be the process of historical evaluation. So both these processes are continuing in our ummah, and hence it is something that we just need to be in touch with. If we keep in touch with these developments, we'll find out that they never stopped. Yes, they did become sparing. I mean, there was a dearth of this criticism in our ummah, but you'll find that it is still going on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Rafia Khwaja, you're up next. Please go ahead.
Alaikum, Dr. Saleem. Dasab, I wanted to ask you that would you agree that whoever from the Muslims, Jews, Christian or Sabians who believe sincerely in one Allah and the last day and does good deeds shall have no fear or grief and will be rewarded by Allah? Or does everyone have to be a Muslim?
So everyone has to believe in, everyone has to believe in the last messenger of God, and he should have a mighty good excuse not to believe in him. For example, his message did not reach him. For example, there was some confusion about him, but this should not be the fact that he thinks that belief in the last messenger is not required, because we know that salvation is something which is dependent on how the Quran defines it. And the Quran is nothing but a book that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad. So you just cannot bifurcate the messenger and the book that he brought. If you believe in the book, it's like having belief in the messenger as well. So that is how we should proceed. The verse that you are referring to is actually telling us that people thought that affiliation with a particular sect, like being an Abrahamic follower or being a Jew or being a Christian, was sufficient for a person to enter paradise. So that verse 62 of Surah Baqarah, actually occurs in this background, and it underscores the fact that mere attachment to a particular prophet of God is not sufficient. You cannot say that, well, I am a Jew or I am a Christian or I am a believer, I am a Muslim, then merely being a Muslim or merely being a Jew or merely being a Christian is something that is enough for me to go to paradise. So this particular verse is in this background, and it tells us that whether you are a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian, that is not sufficient. There are certain more standards that you need to adhere to, and that is, you have to believe in God, you have to do righteous deeds, and of course you have to believe in the hereafter.
Yes, I was quoting ayat 62. So you have to believe in the prophet.
Of
That
course.
is a condition along with the other conditions. And then anybody who believes this will have a fair chance with Allah, depending on how he's lived his life.
Correct.
That okay, doctor. I get it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The next question asks, this is regarding yesterday because it was Halloween. They're asking, can Muslims celebrate Halloween in a traditional way, the way it's celebrated by people in America and other countries that partake in Halloween?
Yes, I should say that as long as it is wearing costumes and asking sweets and doing nothing vulgar or doing nothing which is against monotheistic practices, it should not be a problem. Although we know that the origin of Halloween has its roots in polytheism and a lot of superstitions, but now we see that it has evolved and the background seems to be subtracted from it, and it has more become a costume function in which children or boys and girls, they wear different costumes and they ask for sweets. So if it is confined to this particular, just this aspect, then it does seem that it should not be a problem. However, as I said, we must be aware that the origins of this custom were quite different, and centuries ago it was celebrated in a different manner. But today people don't even know the background, and they just think that it's a custom, it's a function in which you wear different costumes and ask for sweets. So if the concept is this much, and Muslims, children and boys and girls, they also just indulge in this costume wear. Of course, the costumes themselves should not be vulgar or they should not be provocative in any way. So any other costume is fine, and obviously asking for sweets is fine too.
Oh, what about saying Happy Halloween or wishing others happy?
That's the same thing. It's a meaningless thing. When you say Happy Halloween, what do you mean? It just means that the day that we are celebrating may bring happiness to you. So that's also fine, because you see, now the background of the whole festivity is no longer in the minds of people. And when things get let me give you an example. Sunday, Sunday, which is tomorrow, is basically the day in which they would worship the sun god, and it became a day on which sun was commemorated as the biggest god, as the greatest god. But today, very few people would know this. For them, Sunday, similarly, Monday was the moon day, when they would worship the moon. So it's in a similar way. At times, things start off in a polytheistic fashion, but they get subtracted from their background and they just become a different thing. So no longer do we even realize that Sunday is a day when people should worship the sun. And we actively use this word as a name of the day. So in a similar way, I would say that Halloween has also lost that background, and today has simply become a custom of wearing these weird costumes.
Explanation, Dr. Saleem Akram Batisa, please go ahead.
Sir, sir, what do we know about the Sabians? I read somewhere they were the one who worshipped fire. Is that true? If that's true, then that's not.
We do know that they were monotheists. We don't have much knowledge about them in detail, but we do know that they were monotheists, and there is one opinion that they used to worship the stars later on, once they lost their monotheistic proclivity. But we have very little knowledge. All that we can say is that the way they have been enumerated, it shows that they were basically believers in one God. And slowly this belief in one God got eroded, and polytheism crept into them too. And the way they are mentioned in the Quran also shows that they were found in Arabia of those times, and the Arabs knew them very well. But later on, we don't have much definite knowledge, although people still think that there are some of them to be found in parts of Iraq. But it's hard to say.
So they were monotheists. That as the Quran, according to Quran, they were not one who worshipped stars or anything else.
No, they did not worship the sun, the stars. What we do know is that they were involved in some sort of polytheism, and they did worship the stars, but we don't have much details. There has been a lot of conjecture about it, but the exact detail about them is yet to be fully ascertained. And even if it is not ascertained, that's besides the point, because you see, the point that the Quran is making is that people who belong to monotheistic religions, and if they deviate from that monotheism, just like the Jews, they were primarily monotheists, but they deviated from that, and they regarded Ezra, at least the Jews of Arabia, regarded Ezra to be the son of God. Similarly, Christians, they were monotheists, but later on they regarded Jesus to be the son of God, right after he passed away, and they still claim that they are monotheists. So basically what is being said here, that in spite of the fact that these monotheistic religions, they still are found in Arabia, merely ascribing yourself to any of these religions is not going to be a means of salvation for you. There are certain other criteria as well that you must fulfill.
Understood, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next question asks, I'm fond of rock music and I like to play it out loud in my room and after offering prayers too. But my parents tell me that this will waste your prayer rewards. Am I disobeying my parents by refusing to abandon music?
No, I think you should just be careful that your music does not disturb other people who are outside of your room. Otherwise, it's perfectly okay to play your music. You can, I know hard music or hard rock, it is something that creates a lot of noise. But if your room is soundproof, it is something that does not let the noise or the voice go out. It's perfectly okay. And you can tell your parents that there is no such thing, that music does not waste my prayer and does not waste my worship. And if they think they do so, then they should show some proof. Where does the Quran or the Hadith say so? There is no such thing. And again, you will not be disobeying them if you don't accept their view. You have the right to differ with them. To have a difference of opinion in an intellectual matter is perfectly okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Noshad Shafkat, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sab, again, verse 62 of Surah Baqarah. If I read your translation of Ghamidi Sab's commentary, is that those who have professed faith and those who became Jews and those who are called Nasara and Sabin, whoever among them believed in God and last day and whatever. Sir, here Muslims are also referred. So when it says and those who became Jews, I'm not reading the parenthesis because those have been inserted. But the meaning is Innal lazina amanu Wallazina Hadu wa Nasara,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Mm-hmm.
So, wouldn't that include all those who call themselves Jews, who call themselves Sabians, or even Christians?
In their own
If they
times.
believed in God, if they believed in the last day and did good deeds,
Hmm.
how would that stop them from getting heaven in the next world?
Yes, let me try to explain this verse in a different way. And I think if you read the footnote which Ustaz Ghamidi has written below this verse, if I remember correctly, is something that should answer your question in a different way. And that is that expressed in this verse are the requirements of religion, or the positive requirements of religion in entering paradise or for salvation. But equally important is that a person should not be guilty of any felony, any offense. Like, for example, he has not killed someone. Because if you kill someone, then in spite of believing in God, in spite of believing in the hereafter and doing other good deeds, you'll still be liable for hell because you have killed someone. In a similar way, if you have denied a prophet of God intentionally, for example, the message of a prophet of God did not reach you, that's fine. I mean, then these conditions are sufficient. But you did not make an effort to find out critically whether people who have claimed to be prophets of God and they're calling themselves to be a messenger of God, and you did not take the pains to find them out, or you were convinced of their prophethood but you denied. So this would be a felony. This would be an offense, which would mean that in spite of these conditions, there is a negative condition that a person was supposed to honor. I mean, in a sense, it was a positive condition that it was made a negative one because you did not follow it. So it's like saying that these are the four conditions, but with these four conditions, if you end up denying a truth, then these conditions will be null and void. Because it's the same thing that you believe, you're a good believer, you're doing everything fine, but you end up killing someone. Or you end up doing some other criminal activity that strips you of any divine salvation. So, if you believe in God, whether you're a Jew or a Christian, you believe in the last day, you believe in good deeds, and you also were led to believe in the veracity of a prophet, and you said that I'm not going to accept it. So you deliberately deny a prophet of God. So that deliberate denial is going to declare your belief in these three tenets expressed in this verse null and void.
So that would be only an offense, as you said. But
Correct.
if I did not, if, for example, a person did not believe in the other prophets.
So the question would be, you see, the question is that a person has to be a critical seeker of the truth. And if the message of a messenger of God did not reach him, that he is the final messenger, and as a final messenger, he has a message to convey to you. If, for example, this whole scenario did not reach a person, then of course he'll not be asked. But if he did not take the pain to at least find out whether this is a true claim or not, or if he was convinced and he never ever bothered, then this is a scenario in which God could make him a negligent. I mean, he could be counted as a person who was negligent in this regard, and that negligence could be very fatal as well.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab. This is Shehzad calling from Toronto. I've joined the meeting after, I've been a regular, basically contributor also. Just wanted to ask you about the treatment of animals, specifically when it comes to testing on animals. Are we allowed to partake in any activity that we might consider to be beneficial for mankind or humankind? This
Yes,
includes,
I would say so.
okay.
The testing of medicines. So you see, what makes me believe that we are allowed to do so is that the Quran has specified this on many occasions, that the animals have been created for us, for our service, for our food, for our transportation, and for any other use that we find that we can gain from them. So I would analogously think that if we can experiment on our animals and we are able to produce medicines which are ultimately life-saving or even in any way beneficial for human beings, then this is something that should be allowed. The only thing is that as far as possible, anything that amounts to cruelty or anything that amounts to inflicting pain on them must be avoided as far as possible, unless, of course, the nature of the experiment is such that you cannot help it.
Yes, sir. That's what my basically, that's where I was actually gravitating towards, was that we see all these experiments that are done. They are pretty cruel. These animals, dogs, monkeys, they actually go through lots of pain. And, you know, if you go through just some of the documents only, what they went through, it's like, it seems to me very inhumane. So my question again was just regarding that, you know what, yes, we're looking forward to and might actually contribute towards, you know, something beneficial coming out of this for the humans, but to put animals through that cruelty.
Yes, that's something, I mean, we need to weigh what we should do is we should weigh our options. I mean, if there is a chance that you can maybe produce something which is really a game changer or a lifesaver, maybe that is something that can be tolerated. But yes, I would also think that being compassionate to animals is also very, very important. Any such experiment which can put them into prolonged pain, I mean, one thing is that you put them into some temporary pain, maybe a couple of minutes or something like that, or maybe some sort of short period. But if it is something like a prolonged thing in which it goes on for days or maybe even more, so I personally think that this should not be done.
Okay, I understand, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to add a little bit more here, just as somebody who works with animals and does experiments on them myself. We have review committee boards that before you even start anything, you have to specify what you're going to do exactly, what's the purpose, why you're doing that, and what kind of material you're going to be collecting from all of this. And then moving forward, how many animals you're going to use. So in no time are they put in any unnecessary pain. If we find that our experiments, that their quality of life is doing poorly, depending again on the experimental design. If you are trying to test chronic pain, you cannot avoid, just with you can't have the same effect with just testing for acute pain, because some things have long-term impacts. And I would much rather do clinical trials and tests initially on animals than on humans, because a lot of these things are also to see, are these things that will later start to give to humans, that's we might end up seeing these effects in humans. So just to see, because there are some people, for example, Peter, that make the argument that, oh, you can test these things in cells or in organoids, and these models, they let you test to a certain degree, and yes, those things are also done, but then you move on to the animal models because you don't know how different types of cells are going to be interacting with each other, and if there are going to be side effects elsewhere in the body that you might not expect. Correct. So that's why, just coming from a scientific perspective, it's very important for these tests to be held and to not discourage from animal studies, but also do it very compassionately, very mindfully. I hope that adds a little bit more context.
It does. Thank you so very much. It's so heartening to hear that, there are still ethical standards in place that can minimize the pain.
Absolutely. Right. We can't do anything with it. There are very strict standards.
Correct. Otherwise, we'll have animal rights organizations. They will just make it difficult for them to do any sort of experiment as it is. And even besides that, even if we don't have any such organizations, it's a basic human, I would say, value that we have to look after such individuals as such life forms and life beings who are dependent on us and who cannot defend themselves if we use force against them. So I think this is a basic human ethic that we have to follow at all cost.
Thank you, sir.
We'll move on to some of the chat questions and then come back to the raised hands. The next question asks, can I have a crocodile skin tattoo on my skin by cutting my skin like some tribes in Africa?
So what you will do is you will cut your skin and replace it with what? A crocodile?
Like cut it in a pattern.
Oh, cut it in a pattern.
Pattern of a crocodile.
I guess so. I mean, so you see, what will you go through is a little bit of pain, and if that makes you happy or it makes you sort of okay, then I don't think that can be objected to. That's your personal choice.
Okay, thank you very much. And oh yeah, they're just explaining that when it heals, it'll form the pattern of the same texture as the crocodile skin.
Right. So that's not a problem. See, let me explain this a little more. In general, tattoos have been regarded as forbidden by our Muslim scholars, and the narrative of the Prophet which says so, if you interpret it in the light of the Quran, you'll come to realize that it's not an absolute prohibition that is mentioned regarding tattoos. Basically, tattoos or etching patterns that depict deities that would be worshipped in the times of the Prophet were the ones that were prohibited actually. It's not all types of tattoos, only tattoos which were vulgar, which of course is understood, or which invoked sentiments of worship, because lots of idols would be worshipped and they would be sketched. So that sketching, if it would be done on the skin, so it was these tattoos about which the Prophet said that God would curse such people who make these tattoos. So remember, it is about such type of tattoos. Other than that, if you have a tattoo of an animal or any other life form or even of yourself or whatever, as long as it is not vulgar and as long as it is not something which invokes sentiments of worship, that was something that happened in the times of the Prophet. Tattoos, they do not bear any label of prohibition in themselves. I mean, tattoos are not prohibited per se, so to speak. It's only the use of them in a certain way that was under discussion. And unfortunately, people did not relate this to the Quranic injunction in this regard, and they came up with this absolute prohibition that come what may, whatever tattoo you make is prohibited. This is much like what has happened with pictures and portraits. So only those pictures and portraits were disallowed, which again were either vulgar or invoked sentiments of worship. And by not relating these narratives to what was the basis in the Quran, people came up with the absolute prohibition of pictures and portraits of living beings. It's the same which has happened with tattoos as well. So I just wanted to clarify that tattoos in themselves they are a choice of the person who would like to have them etched, as long as they don't have these two characteristics.
I think this brings a larger question of self-inflicting pain, and like to what extent are we allowed to put our body through harm?
I mean, you see, as long as you're not putting it in danger, life, I mean, this is something you're trying to embellish yourself, you're trying to beautify yourself in your own peculiar way, and I might differ. But if you are able to bear that pain and you think that, well, this is something that is a temporary pain, it's not something that's going to go on and on, it's just like a couple of minutes maybe, and then I'll have a pattern on my own skin. So that's something that you're doing. I mean, you're not inflicting pain per se. You see, inflicting pain is a different thing, in which the purpose is to inflict pain. Remember, sadism or maybe things like masochism or similar things, the purpose per se in them is to inflict pain. Here the purpose is not to inflict pain, that's just a byproduct. The purpose is to create a pattern, but it comes with a cost. That cost is that pain. So you see, there is this subtle difference that we must keep in mind.
हमारे यहाँ पर लोग सुना है वो they take a lot of drug, or they drink a lot, so they get out of mind, so they don't feel the pain when they get that.
So that's another thing. You don't need to take drugs. You can just numb the skin as well. I'm not sure if that can be done or not. Otherwise, if someone says that we're just going to numb the skin or maybe apply a local anesthesia for that, or inject something that can just nullify the pain, that should not be a problem.
Similarly, like the chances of something like that getting infected would be much higher.
Okay, yes, that's it. I mean, this is a medical hazard. So you see, it's not this concern of religion. Religion will tell you something which is ideologically wrong or morally wrong. I mean, health hazard is something that you, by your own common sense, you should avoid as much as possible, and at times you even take risks.
Thank you very much for that explanation, Dr. Saleem. Because we have another question that's related to it, I'll get to that one first and then I'll get back to the rest of the chat questions. This one's asking, is permanent disfiguration of body with tattoos allowed, or the temporary use one, is that the one that you were talking about that's only allowed?
So the permanent disfiguration of your body, I mean, it all depends what you mean by that. If you have patterns all over your body and you like them for your own self, you're not disfiguring your body in your own eyes. What you're doing is you're embellishing it, you're beautifying it. For another person, it might be disfiguring, but it's not disfiguring for the person who is doing it. So I think it's a matter of your personal taste. For as far as you're not doing something vulgar, as far as you're not doing something which invokes sentiments of polytheism or any other such deviation, all the other things that we do with ourselves or we plan to do or we have intention, they have a lot to do with our own personal taste and our own proclivity, I think. And that is something that should be left to the person to decide. Other people should just accept what the person would like to do, because we don't have a right to criticize people for their personal choices. I cannot simply say that, well, why are you wearing a red colored shirt? Because I don't like a red color, I don't have a right to criticize a red color. Similarly, if I have a aversion to lots of tattoos being created on the body, that's my choice, and I should keep that choice to myself. But if some other person would like tattoos all over the body, I mean, what is my business to criticize that person if those tattoos are not vulgar and they're not also invoking any sentiments of worship?
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, can you please explain this verse and what can we do to control an-nafs? And the verse is, وَمَن يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ.
Well, this is something that a person who is able to overcome the greed of his soul is someone who succeeds. That is what this verse means. وَمَن يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. So this is a verse which tells us that how important it is to control our desires, to control our inhibitions, and all these things, they matter. So the Quran will just give you a principle statement that a person who controls his desires is someone who's going to succeed. But how exactly are we going to control those desires? That is a thing that we need to figure out ourselves by realizing that life is basically a test that we are being put through, and the biggest way to pass this test is to make ourselves strong internally, organize ourselves, follow a certain regimen, follow a certain routine, not succumb to desires, always do what is positive. So this is something that we need to do through our own willpower. I mean, the Quran is not going to make us use our willpower. That is something that we need to do. The Quran will just tell you the objective, that this verse tells you that anyone who controls the greed that is found within that person has succeeded. How exactly that greed is to be controlled, that is again a methodology that I need to evaluate. And as far as I know, there is only one thing that can do that, and that is your own determination and willpower. When you make up your mind that I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that because it's harmful, or because God does not like it, or because it has a certain bad effect. So all these are the causes that make you muster your willpower. So it's the willpower that has to be mustered and collected sort of and used in this way.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, what's your opinion on the self-help industry? Because some people claim that it's very narcissistic to go to those self-help places, like listening to podcasts or reading books. Instead, you should be focused on God. Even though these self-help industries, they try to give you tips on how to better your focus, finding purpose, and it's kind of healthy habit building. So like, where do you see the demarcation?
I think this is again something that we should not control. We should not control the lives of people. The thing is that we need to gain knowledge, and we must be critical thinkers, and this critical thinking is the key. And whether we go to self-help techniques or whether we go to some rigorous arrangement of gaining knowledge, that is something that should suit our own personal disposition. There are different types of dispositions. Some people are more inclined to one and some to others. So I think instead of regimenting them and giving them a protocol, a guideline that needs to be given to them is that whatever you do, whichever thing feels comfortable for you, you should do it, as long as you do it in a critical way, as long as you analyze things that come your way, and just don't take things for granted or don't accept them on their face value. So basically the job is to critically evaluate things, and the methodology of gaining knowledge, I think, should be left to a person to decide. We are no one to make a value judgment that certain things should be done or others should not be done. I think whatever is comfortable.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Naushad Shafqat, please go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Sab, I'm referring here to verse 31 of Surah Rahman. Sanafrugu lakum ayyuhas saqalan. God has so many attributes, and one of the hallmarks of his being God is that he exercises all those attributes he can exercise at the same time. That is what is said. Now, when here the meaning of this word is, "O mighty groups, we are about to find time for you." Now, that raises a question that God was busy in something else when he didn't have time for these people, or how would you explain?
Yeah, no. So I would need to look up the verse and the context, but what comes to my mind off the top of my head is that this actually relates to the hereafter. It tells us that we are about to take your account, so don't think that you're going to just go away or run away. You are being given this respite, and very soon you shall be grabbed. So it is like expressing the fact that God is going to soon call to you to account, whether in this world or the next world. It's not that he's busy elsewhere and he's not finding time, and very soon he'll find time. What the stress here on my first thought is that it is giving the addressees this very threatening information that soon I'm going to call you to account. You have a little bit of respite left. You can do what you want, but don't think that you'll not be held accountable.
Amazing answer, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have a few more chat questions. The next question asks, in Islam, leaving worships are deadly sins, but in Bible, demerits of human characters are deadly sins. So like the 7 deadly sins mentioned in the Bible. Stress of Islam is on worship, and the Bible encourages to improve one's character. Why does Islam prefer worship over character, although it educates us to improve in character too? And will Muslim societies Muslim societies depict this high in worship, low in character?
So this is a very unfortunate thing, and I think that there is no difference between the Bible and the Quran. Both actually lay stress equally on worship and on being a good human being or having a good character. It is just that Muslim scholars, the way they teach and interpret the Quran, they give more stress to worship rituals in their own teachings. Otherwise, if you look at the Quran, it tells you that to be a good human being, to be a person who is always connected to humanity, is equally important. In fact, it tells us that these worship rituals are a means to become a better person. They are not an end in themselves. They are a means to an end, and that end is to become a better person. So you will find that the Quran is absolutely giving you the same message as the Bible. Unfortunately, Muslim clerics have held on to a different interpretation, and that is that gives you the impression as if character or conduct is something which is secondary, and the real thing is worship rituals. So I would suggest the questioner to have a direct reading of the Quran, and the person will find out for himself or herself that how important being a good person and a good human being is to the Quran.
Much, Dr. Saleem. The next
if not more.
The next question asks, is there more punishment for people who have self-realization that they're doing wrong and still not changing than someone who sins without realizing it? For even after recognizing my flaws, it feels like I lack self-control. I truly want to do so much for Allah, yet I keep choosing dunya and my nafs over Him. Will Allah Ta'ala think that I'm playing victim every time and not actually doing anything and choosing Him?
I think it's a struggle that we are all going through. I mean, it's not something not specific to you. We have our demons, we have our trials, we have our misgivings, we have our difficulties and hardships. We all go through this. We're all humans. So I think what we need to do is that every time that we fall, we must rise again, start again, and think that it's not the sin that matters as much as our attitude after the sin or the mistake that we do. So God is not someone who is going to be finicky about that. If a person has sinned, then that's something that is unforgivable, as long as, of course, we're not referring to a particular form of sins. Otherwise, most sins are forgivable as long as we repent. And repentance actually means that we feel sorry and ashamed, and we make amends for anything that we missed out, and redo whatever we missed out. So if we do that again and again, and even then we miss out, and then we still sin, and then we get up and then sin. I mean, it could be a lifelong process. As long as we don't become adamant on sinning, and as long as we don't lose hope in God's mercy, every time that we do something bad, we immediately realize, come out of it, seek God's forgiveness, and make amends. That's how we should be. And I do hope, inshallah, one day, if we keep on doing this, then the path will become easy as we go along in life, and the amount of wrongdoings will, if they don't go away, at least they will reduce.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Would you happen to know if Ghamidi Saab has more than Surat al-Hajj? Because they say that the app doesn't show.
No, so that is something that he's still to give. So this is as long as his oral lectures are concerned, it is until Surah Hajj that you'll find them uploaded. However, his written tafsir, of course, is complete. If you need to read it, you'll find all of it in the app. But Surah Hajj is a surah until which he has delivered the oral lectures on his tafsir. So the rest are yet to be done.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Noshad Shafta, please go ahead.
Dr. Saab, a small question. If prayers are being offered at home by a family, how many people minimum for a Jamaat to form? Can one lead and one pray behind?
One needs to just stand beside the person, one step back. If there are two people, that person just needs to stand one step back, and that is fine. So two people can form a congregation.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much.
Imran Babar, you're up next. Please go ahead.
Dr. Saab, two very quick questions. First is are you also going to publish a separate book on hadith? You know, the ones that you have rejected, will there be a separate book on that?
So they are already being published. So I've just finished 3 volumes, and they might be published by the end of this year, maybe, or maybe next month, inshallah. And I'm on to the 4th volume. So yes, that is in process.
So right now only one book is published, Ilmun Nabi.
So you see, there are 2 categories, or there are 2 distinct portions of the Hadith project. One is the positive portion, in which the collections that we are accepting, or the anthology that is being corroborated, is being tabulated. So Ilmun Nabi is volume 1 of that, and we would have several volumes, inshallah, hopefully, of that. And then another part of that project is the rejected narratives and the reasons for the rejection. So that is the part which I am doing. And as I just said, I finished 3 volumes, on to the 4th one. The first 3 have been consigned to the press, and they should be out by, I hope so, by the end of this year, or maybe in December, inshallah.
Thank you, sir. Am I allowed to ask a second question, Mariam?
Yeah, if it's really quick, please go ahead.
Yes. Dr. Did you manage to watch the debate not debate, but a very good dialogue between Dr. Khalid Zahir and Dr. Shafti Saab? And if you didn't, I mean, are you aware with Dr. Shafti's
of course,
thesis
I know.
or narrative?
Yes, I know him very well. I know the thesis very well, but I'm not aware of any dialogue or debate. Is it something recent?
Very recent, yeah. Very, very good one. I'll send you the link. But do you have any comments of Dr. Shafti's narrative?
I don't agree with his narrative at all. I think that there are certain fundamental flaws, and the most important one of them is that some of the verses that he has interpreted to confine the Sharia aspect to the Bani Ismail, is something that is seriously flawed. And as far as Sharia is concerned, it is meant for all Muslims. It's not just confined for the Bani Ismail or the Arabs of those times. And I think there are 3 or 4 major verses that he has adduced from in forming his own opinion, and I beg to differ in the interpretation of those verses.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Last very quick question. Can one hunt an animal as a hobby?
I would not recommend that. I mean, we don't have any explicit prohibition, but I think animal hunting should be done for need, for your own consumption of meat. It should not become a sport, because now you're killing for pleasure.